Okay, ready? Yep, okay. So I'm Tracey Werner-Wilson, and I'm director of the UK Family Center. And the Family Center is a training/teaching clinic for the students, our graduate students that are in the Couple and Family Therapy program, which is located in the Department of Family Sciences. So I'm the director of that, keep it running, make sure we're following protocol and all of that. So Azetta asked me to talk a little bit about work and family harmony and how we, how do we do that? We're all in this kind of, the new normal, and but it's a transition, and it's unfamiliar, and so also can be very stressful. So I came up with some things we could talk about, and then later on, I want to hear from you folks as far as what have you found helpful. So, okay. Yeah, so some things we'll look at is I want to talk about trauma and high anxiety and its impact on us. All right, we'll review quickly some signs of stress or trauma. We'll look at how to rearrange expectations and routines, and then hopefully gain some ideas that we can all put in use, some new ideas to balance family and work. All right, so this is a pandemic. This is new. Things aren't, none of us have been through this before. None of us have had to balance working at home and having children at home. And it's a time of high anxiety and trauma. And even if you think it's a hoax or it's not that serious, it's still kind of this cloud that hangs over us and impacts everything we do. Like, we can't even walk into the store anymore on our own unless we have a mask on. And so that's a continual visual reminder that this time that we're in is different. It's not what we're used to, all right? So we're living in a time of high anxiety, no matter where on the spectrum of this pandemic we fall on, we're still anxious. And high anxiety, being in a perpetual state of high anxiety, is trauma to our systems, because we're constantly on the lookout, okay? And it gets tiring, it gets old. And we're 6 months into it. And I read an article recently from a woman who works in disaster services and goes into places and stays there a year or more, helping disaster recovery. And one of the things she said, she learns that about 6 months, she hits a wall. And so she's assuming that a lot of us are hitting a wall at this point. And I think from what I hear about friends, we're tired of it, right? We thought it would be over. That energy that we had at the beginning to beat it and to get through this together is waning. And we're wondering what's going on. And so that anxiety then of when are we going to get back to what we know? We carry that with us in everything we do. And again, it's trauma, because trauma is defined as a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. And that's what we're in. And for children, though, trauma can also be an actual event like we're in, or even a perceived event. If they sense our anxiety, if they sense that something is dangerous or is threatening, even if it isn't, it can be trauma. And so how we work with them then depends on how well they get through the trauma. And so I think that's an important thing to remember, because we have been in it for a while. And in some ways, the whole idea of a new normal, it takes a long time for something to become normal. And we're still not there yet. So we're still in the high anxiety trauma area of this. And when we when we have high anxiety or have that stress on us, it's hard to function as high as we do when life is going good. You know, we all function a little bit lower, and which then adds to the whole mess. And so it's also good to know those signs of stress, so that when we see them in ourselves or when we see them in our family members, we can, we know what we're dealing with. And it's not like, particularly for children, it's not being, it's not a disciplinary, it's not misbehaving. It's the stress coming out. And children do not, you know, one of the things they're taught throughout childhood, and even, you know, when they hit adolescence, that's like a whole new learning area. But they're in their 20s, they're learning to self-regulate. And so their behaviors will probably be out of whack. And their behaviors will show us first what is stress. And so some of the signs you may see are aggression. You may see that in, you know, sibling relationships that you've never seen before, withdrawal. Somebody may want to, you know, stay in their room, probably a teenager. How do you pull them out? You know, because that's how they're coping. That's how they're calming that anxiety within themselves. Difficulty sleeping. You know, when this first started, I remember having a hard time falling asleep, and then sometimes in the middle of the night waking up and then not being able to go back to sleep. And I would imagine that that's still going on for some of us. And I would imagine at times for kids, that is still there. And so you may end up with little ones, you know, waking you up in the middle of the night, needing reassurance, or coming into your room, you know, crawling into bed with you. And this is part of that stress. This is how they show that. This is your cue that this is what's going on. And dysregulation, regression. We regress in our behaviors. We regress in our emotions, and children do too. And so these are signs of stress that you may see in family members that gives you a clue that, you know, there's something needs to be addressed. And the easiest way to do that is just to acknowledge it, point it out, and say, hey, it seems like your stress is coming out. It seems like maybe you're feeling afraid or scared right now. Is what's going on? And so acknowledge it and acknowledge the emotions. And then also acknowledge the change. Yeah, this is really different, isn't it? Yeah, you don't get to see your friends at school, and you miss your teachers. You miss those activities. You know, you're not going to be able to do some of the things that you thought you would, you know, this year in school. And that is tough. So acknowledge the changes, acknowledge the emotions that come with it, and allow them to have those emotions. I think as parents, we want them to feel good. We want them to feel better. And so we'll jump into looking at the bright side, or looking for the silver lining, or looking at how we're going to get through this together. It's okay for us to be sad. It's okay for us to acknowledge our stress. It's okay for us to acknowledge we're anxiety. Because when we acknowledge it, it doesn't hold inside. It gets out. And then, at least for me, I feel a little less crazy when I'm able to say, whoa, this is, I'm going nuts here. Or, man, I am tired of this. You know, I just want to go to the movies, or I just want to get together with a group of friends, and I'm really frustrated I can't. Absolutely. That's normal. We're all there. So just acknowledge it and the emotions that come with it. And so sometimes then when you see these behaviors, or you hear a tone in the voice that's signaling to you that the stress of all this, or the anxiety of all this, is getting to somebody, just check in, directly ask. That's all we need to do. Hey, how are you doing? This morning I asked my 17-year-old, I said, hey, I haven't asked you for a while. How are you handling all this stuff? not being able to go back to school until probably later, and not seeing your friends. How are you dealing with that, right? So ask them directly, make it a topic, all right? And then listen and give them permission for what they're feeling. Let them own those feelings. Let them own feeling sad. Let them own feeling miserable. Let them own feeling frustrated. Because it's normal that would be there. And if we don't own it, if we don't acknowledge it, things will just get worse. It'll get bigger, behaviors will get worse. So the best way to deal with it is to acknowledge it, all right? And then depending on the age of the child, you know, encourage them to ask questions, and then just give age appropriate responses as far as what's going on. And then some reassurance, all right? Some reassurance that, yeah, we don't know when this will end, but we know it will end. They're working on a vaccine. They're working to get you back in school. And then the reassurance that you're still the adult, you're still there, going to be there for them. And, you know, they're not in this alone, and that they can come to you whenever they have questions, whenever they have emotions that are kind of like spilling out all over, that you're going to be there for them. All right. What they need the most is they need to know that there's going to be an adult in their life that is there, that they can depend on. Okay. And so that's, you can do that for them. And by asking and acknowledging, that's how you're doing that. Okay. So some of the ideas that you may have heard about before, or maybe they're new, or sometimes it's just nice to have a reminder. As this drags on, there are times that it's, in some ways, life can look normal, and it's easy to forget that, no, we're still very high anxiety. We're still really stressed out, all right? Oh, sorry, I missed this slide. If kids, no matter what age, sometimes because they can't have those, they haven't completed that self-regulation process, their behaviors take over. They can't deal with their emotions, and it comes out through their behaviors. And if their behaviors are hurtful, then yeah, they need to be stopped, right? And so here are 3 things to remember when you work with your child on that. All right. Acknowledge the feeling. Show empathy. I see that you're angry, you're sad, you're disappointed, you're scared. I see all of that. Okay. And that makes sense that you are. And then, but communicate that limit. All right. But I'm not here for hitting. Or it isn't safe to kick or scream, and yelling isn't allowed. We talk respectfully to each other. And so maybe there are some other things you can do to get that stress out. So maybe you can hit these pillows, or maybe you can scream into those pillows, or maybe we can take a walk around the block and just get outside and get away and see how that helps. Maybe that'll give us a different perspective. But those behaviors, whatever they're doing, those aren't acceptable, and we need to find other ways. So again, acknowledging what's underneath those behaviors, seeing them as a signal, as a cue to you that something in their system is out of whack. Okay. So another way that I think helps us as a family to balance everything that's going on, you know, all our new roles, all our new expectations, but also having to continue to carry on with our responsibilities. All right. One of the things I think is to reshuffle family expectations. All right. Some people, you know, will say lower expectations is not acceptable. But during this time, we want to get through it, and we want to get through it with the most emotional, healthy way we can. And sometimes that means lowering our expectations. Because everything that we're familiar with has changed, all right? So those higher expectations we have on ourselves, particularly as caregivers, So the house doesn't get cleaned up as well as what it used to. Because we're all at home now, right? So we're all making a mess. You clean up the kitchen and you walk out and you turn around to go back in to get something you forgot, and somehow there's 6 more dishes sitting on the counter. It's never ending. And at some point we gotta leave it and say it'll be all right, we can deal with it, and then walk away. And some of it then may too be renegotiate household labor and get the kids involved. They're at home now. They have, if they're like my kids, they have schooling that they have to do. So they have to be on Zoom at a certain amount of time, but there are breaks in between. And if they don't have to work on homework, or maybe they just need a break to get off Zoom so that they can get back on and do homework, have them do a household task, have them fold the laundry, have them put those dishes in the dishwasher, have them get a dust rag and go around and dust a little bit. Give them a task that helps them feel as though they're contributing. You'll get a lot of whining probably and a lot of, oh, why do I have to do this? Just power through it and help them. And it, I think in the end, they're gonna feel like a contributing member of the family. It's also gonna give them a little bit of feeling of control that, oh yeah, we can control maybe not what's going on out there, but we can control our environment. All right. So give yourself some understanding and some forgiveness that maybe things aren't looking like they normally did, or the bathroom didn't get cleaned this week like it usually does, or even 2 weeks in a row like it usually does. It's okay. It's okay. Give yourself some understanding and forgiveness for, you know, not being able to maintain those standards that you at one time had. And then look at routines. I think for kids, and even though they don't want to admit it, a routine for a high schooler is also very reassuring. Look at your schedules. Look at the kids' school schedules. Come up with a calendar, color coded. Each person gets a color. You know, when is Susie going to be in school? When is Johnny going to be on Zoom for school? When do I need to be on Zoom for work? When do I need to be working in my area? Lay it all out on a weekly calendar. So, and post it around so that people can see, so that people know what's going on. But then get in that routine. Try to establish a new routine and try to make it consistent, like our old routines, because routines, we can control them. And so they're reassurance. They're reassuring to kids that life isn't spinning out of control, all right? And they may complain, they may not like it, but eventually they'll get used to it, all right? And then as part of that routine though, as well, have planned times to touch base with family members. So one of the routines we've gotten into since working at home, and there are days that my husband works at home and we still have a 17-year-old at home, is breakfast together. Now before we had to get up, we had to be out of the house by 6:50. I live outside of Lexington, so we had to get in to get him into school. We got to our offices. We had to leave our house at 6:50 in the morning. And so we didn't really have time to have breakfast together. Now that we don't have to rush off, we can have breakfast together. And when we don't, my son misses it. Because some days I'll have an 8:30 meeting or a 9 o'clock meeting. And so actually though, we used to eat at like 8. He has now decided that he'll get up at 7, and so that we can eat at 7:30, and then I can get to my meetings. You know, his dad can get to leave for work when he needs to go into the office or get to a meeting that he has. But so we have this new routine, but we also have this time now that we touch base. We talk about our day, what's going on, how many meetings do we have, what subjects is he studying, and then we leave and we say, see you at lunch. And then we'll eat lunch together when we can, all right? And then we'll say, see you at the end of the day. And then we get back together 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and, you know, we talk about how things went. So it's interesting, even though this is a high stress time, like for my family, I'm probably more in touch. It's embarrassing to say, but I'm probably more in touch with my child now than when I was rushing off to get to the office and had to be there at a certain time and then had to stay there long at a certain time. So, and schedule those breaks, schedule quick walks around the block, schedule a snack time for everybody, schedule maybe a game time, play a quick game, get our heads out of the Zoom meetings, get our heads out of the computer, and reconnect. And before then, we have to go back and put in another chunk of time. So routines, again, are familiar, they're comforting, and they help bring a normalcy to life because we're all doing it together, all right? And then boundaries, set your boundaries around work. It's so easy to come and go and get something else done. I think studies are showing that people are actually working more because they have more access to their computers at home when they're working at home. And so what you want to do though is you need to limit that, you know, put in your time, but then limit and make sure you get away from it so that you go back the next day refreshed. And another thing that I encourage people to do, and then do it with their kids as well as themselves, is where's your designated workspace, all right? And set it up, and people know that this is your space. When you're at this space, you're working. When they're in their space, they're supposed to be working, and they're working. And again, that routine, that boundary happens. Another thing I came across, and I never thought about it, was that transition time that we've lost. You know, we all used to have transitions. We would, we'd get up, we'd get ready, and then there's that transition time in the car on our way to the office, on our way to our desks, where we can kind of get the headspace and get ourselves psyched up for the day and in the groove. And we don't have that anymore. And despite how much fun it was, or, you know, the silly memes that were out there about going to work in pajama pants and a nice shirt, I find that transition times, dressing nicely for work, continues to help me make that transition. But also maybe walk around the block before you sit down. And then at the end of the day, shut your computer off. You know, pick up the dogs, take the kids, walk around the block again, nothing very long, and then you're done for the day. You know, turn your computer off. We usually leave ours on, but I've gotten to where I'll turn the screens off so I don't see it, so it doesn't pull me back in. And then we end up getting kind of burned out and frazzled, all right? So, but those transition times, that helps us get psyched for the day, but then also helps us discharge from the day. Those are important. And so figure out what that is. And maybe it's just, again, so you put on, get out of those sweatpants, get out of the pajama pants, and put on, even if it's a nice pair of jeans or, you know, a pair of khaki pants and a nice shirt, that gets you in that work mood. And then at the end of the day, change back into those sweatpants. And so you're leaving work behind, and now, you know, it's more family time. All right. And I think work is more intense right now. And I think we need to take breaks, whether that's, you know, a snack break, whether that's getting up and going to see, you know, how everybody else is doing, but some kind of a break that gets us, again, kind of refreshes our mind, refreshes what we're doing. The other thing I think is really important during this time is to get outside. You know, they wonder how much is so much what we call in our household screen time. How much is that impacting our kids? How much is that impacting, you know, brain development and what we're doing? How much is that impacting our mental health? And so again, getting away from that, getting outside, taking a walk, taking a hike on the weekends, sitting outside in a lawn chair on a nice sunny day. Get outside, get away from the electronics, and help that kind of refresh you, refresh your mind, and refresh your body. And so not only then do I want you to share what you're already doing that is helping, but I want you to really think about this playing, because we often think that that's just wasting time, when actually it's not. It's really recharging our batteries. So what is it? What are ways that help you play? Is it a hobby that you're taking up? Is it a game maybe? Is it a puzzle? What are ways you're recharging through play? And what ways are you doing it by getting outside? Maybe sitting on your porch, watching the cars go by. Getting outside, getting in that fresh air, giving our brains and our bodies air, space to breathe. And then one of the last things is prioritize your self-care. In some ways, maybe this should have come first. I believe in it more and more, that we have to take care of ourselves. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to get through this. We're not going to get through it how we want to get through it. I know when I don't take care of myself, I get crabby. I get snappish. And so for me, a good way to take care of myself is to get outside. I'll figure something else out when it gets cold, but sometimes even in the cold, I'll bundle up and I'll take a walk. Exercise. I hear a lot of people talk about yoga, and doing yoga, you can get a lot of online yoga, Pilates, some other kind of an exercise program online. Pick up those loose ends with your friends. Figure out a way to safely socialize with them. I had a friend that we pulled into, we went through the drive-through at Starbucks. We each got our coffee. I pulled in, she backed in. And so we were a safe distance and we could talk through the windows. All right. So, think about those ways, getting creative with staying in touch with our friends, staying in touch with our support systems. Again, spend time on a hobby, and then reach out for help though, if needed. If these things aren't working, if other things are happening that are adding to this stress, reach out for help. Reach out for help to your friends. Reach out to help to a professional. And it's not an embarrassing thing to do. It's not you're not weak by doing it. You're maintaining your strength, you're maintaining your health, and get the whole family in and get them talking. If things aren't quite going, if some of the kids are having a harder time than others and you're concerned about it, now reach out for help when it's needed. Talked a little about this already. Mobilize support networks. I had a niece who lives up in Vancouver, and she talked about a buddy family. I had never heard of that before. But do you have a buddy family? A family that if you are in the high risk and you have to really do that social distancing and you have to be very careful, do you have a friend whose family is kind of in the same way and they are also really social distancing and being very careful about how they go out, where they go, what they do? Find a buddy family and get together at a park. Maintain those distances, but you can check in with each other, see how you're doing, see what's going on, maybe have dinners together through Zoom, and coffee meetups, or walking safely together. But again, those networks, it's too bad they're calling it social distancing instead of physical distancing. because we don't want to social distance. During this time is not the time when we should be, distancing ourselves as far as those emotional connections with our friends and with our families. So we have to get creative. We have to figure out other ways of maintaining those connections. All right. And so now we can look at what are you already doing? So what are some of the things? We could also take questions, I guess, at this time, and sharing ideas, questions. Okay. I don't know, is that if you're looking, I'm having a hard, oh, there's my chat box. No, I don't have, do you have the chat box?
Yes, here's one
Okay.
example. Someone said FaceTime with friends is something that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else mentioned looked like I guess some type of game or app called House Party.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And someone talked about for the play, they play with the dogs, they throwing the balls and sticks in the yard. That's one thing they're doing. Someone else is doing crafting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those are great. Those are all really great ideas.
Someone also asked earlier about expectations, examples of age appropriate expectations.
Okay. It might be easier if somebody throws out an age. Um, and and also for clarifying, an expectation on how we talk to them about this, or an expectation on behaviors that we can expect for them. Um, some clarification.
It was one of the earlier slides that talked about how do you communicate or
Mm-hmm.
how do you, or what, how do you have that
Right.
conversation?
Yeah. So, well, let me see if I can find it. I think it's this one.
Yes, this is the one.
Right, right. So, the age. So high schoolers, they can handle more of the technical aspects of the pandemic. They can handle more of the what's happening, what's going on, um, the technical language. The younger you get, probably the more simpler the language needs to be. And also, well, maybe not always, but what I was going to say was, the younger you get, the more reassurance. And it may be the younger you get, the more emotional, the more physical reassurance, the more hugging, the more hand holding. Those things you can do with the younger ones, whereas the older kids may not. But they still need that physical touch reassurance. So it could be if you're walking by, you place your hand on their shoulder. It could be if you're passing them something at dinner, you touch their hand. Interestingly, my 17-year-old started asking me to tuck him into bed. He might be embarrassed if he knew I said that to you. But so I think they need us. They need us to be physically present, and probably the younger, the more, or the bigger demonstration you can do. But also the simpler. So a younger child asking why they can't see their grandparents, why they can't go to school. And so a simple explanation of right now, we don't want to get sick. We don't want to share our germs with grandma or grandpa. That there's a flu, you could call it, I guess, to them, going around. They're coming up with new medicines, but right now it's safe for us to be at home. And then, you know, high schoolers, you can get more into the technicality of what's happening, what's going on. The other thing there too is, I think too, if you're watching the news about everything that's going on, the younger the child, maybe the less they hear, because, you know, news can be so sensationalized, and they can pick up on that anxiety. But ask them what they want to know. And again, that's probably the biggest thing, because they may want to know something that doesn't even enter in our heads, but ask them how they're doing, what are they thinking about, what's it like for them not to be in school, you know, even talking about what do they miss, what do they miss about not going to school, and then turn it around. Once they get that out and you acknowledge that, you can also turn around and say, but I'm wondering if there are some things that we're really enjoying. Like, for instance, our family, like, I really enjoy getting up and having breakfast together. We never got to do that because of all the time crunch and how we need to get out of the, you know, unless we got up at like 4:35 in the morning. And so I really enjoy that. I'm going to miss that when we go. So what are some things maybe they're going to miss when they go back? I don't know if that's helpful. If whoever asked that question, if you have something else that in mind, let me know. But I would say you could start with asking them how they're doing and what are they thinking, and do they have any questions for you? And then go about answering them. Again, the younger the age, the simpler the simpler the vocabulary and the less technical you'd want to get versus a teenager. And then lots of reassurance for all ages. Reassurance that you're still there for them, you're there for them as a family, and that it will end. It might be, you know, next summer, but it will end, and we'll figure out how to get through it together. All right. Any other questions? Did I answer that one enough? Clear enough?
I believe so. Did you have another question at the end of the presentation?
Well, it was, so what are they already doing that works? And then how are they playing? I think that was it, because play to me is a really good stress reliever. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I see couples and I see families. And one of the things I try to get them to do, that usually when they're stressed, when there's high anxiety, when we're missing each other, play stops, that playfulness, that carefree kind of playfulness. And so I work with them to try and get that back. Is there something that they can start doing that gets that playfulness back in that relationship? So I think I was asking them, what are some things that you do that are playful? So walking dogs, playing games, setting, you know, scheduling game time, that's good. Crafting, I think people said FaceTiming with friends. Yeah, get a group of you on there. That house party app, that's a good one. My two older kids they're in their own apartments. And so we all, there's 5 of us. So although the 3 of us in this house, we have to go to different rooms, but we love to play that game. So yeah, playing with the dogs, throwing balls and sticks, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, somebody here talks too. Sue Ann talked about designated work time. Yeah, if you can take over a guest bedroom or some other type of space, set it up. I even brought a couple pictures home from my office. And they're pictures that actually my son painted for me. So I brought them home and I put them up on the wall. And I have some other things that I gathered from my office that are sitting around that I like. And so it's now this corner of this room is my space. So I think it helps us kind of get into that mindset of work. And then when we leave, it's like we've left the building. So, and I think for kids too, if kids are struggling with school, did they have a space that, you know, if rooms are available, like a desktop is available, maybe even turning over the dining room table, and they set up a space and they can leave it there. I saw a colleague got one of those poster boards that are trifold, and she opened it up and put her son's name at the top and put his schedule on it, and then he was able to decorate it. And so then she put it behind his laptop or, you know, around the computer. And so that helped them kind of focus in. And so, you know, again, helping the kids to create their workspace, that when they know that when they're sitting there, they're working on school. When they're out and when they're gone, then they're, you know, re-energizing themselves. All right.
Are there any other questions for Tracey that you guys might want to unmute and ask, or just type it in the chat box? You are welcome to do so.
Okay. Yeah.
One
So
other, oh, go ahead, Tracey.
No, go ahead. I was just going to show resources and then just give them some information about the Family Center. You know, our stress level is already high with the pandemic, but then other things can go wrong. Those you know, those ordinary things that tend to go wrong in life. And so if families need some extra help, if couples need some extra help, if kids need some extra help, it's okay to reach out. You know, it's important that we get through this emotionally healthy. And so I was just going to give some of that information, but what were you going to say, Izetta?
Yes, if you have a slide on that, you can go ahead and go to that.
Okay.
But while you're doing that, I was just going to mention also that I had asked some educators, local educators, what they may advise for parents, you know, as they're trying to assist their children and they're working from home at the same time. And there are several good comments that came through, and some of them you touched on very well already, Tracey. One additional that I think a principal mentioned was the importance of like families even checking in with assignments. You know, if they have children doing assignments, no matter their ages, if they're little, obviously you're probably very hands-on, but if they're a little older, you know, kind of checking in, not a lot. One of the counselors at one of the middle schools was saying once or twice a week is plenty. Like, don't be overbearing about it. If the child is older, you know, kind of help them to empower them to be independent with it, but also you still need to kind of check in on them to make sure that they know what they need to do and they're doing what they need to do, and they don't need extra assistance, but they may not be asking for.
Right.
So,
which is something we would be doing anyway, right? I mean, we have that portal through the school systems. We would be checking in to make sure they're doing the assignments and all. And I don't, you know, I never asked an educator, but part of me, when I see parents think that they're homeschooling, my thought is, no, we're still a support. I don't think we should take on that role of the teacher, but we're still that support. So we kind of supply the environment. That's kind of my take on that. But again, I have a 17-year-old that is pretty self-motivated. And so with a younger one, it could be different. But check in with your teachers, the kids as teachers, and say, what role do you want me to play? How can I best support you through all of this? So, but yeah, checking on their homework, checking on their assignments. We would normally do that anyway. So good to remember some of those things of our old routine we still have. So, so here, again, I think reaching out is a sign of strength, and it's a commitment to the well-being of your family. It's not a sign of weakness. The UK Family Center, we're available. Here's our phone number. We have our phone forwarded. The facility is closed. We're doing telehealth. We're still working with children as well. And it's going surprisingly well. So if you call to get an appointment, it'll be forwarded to a voicemail that then our clinic coordinator has access to. It might be a day or so till we get back with you, but we'll get back with you as soon as we can. Or you can email the Family Center, and I have access to that. So if you have another question afterwards that you want to ask, email me there at the UK Family Center at uky.edu. Or you can email and request services, and we'll try and get you in. The services right now are free to all families. We see this as part of the mission of the university, you know, that mission arm, the service arm. And so we feel like this is the way we can work with the UK family, but also with, you know, anybody can come to the Family Center. So surrounding communities drive in when we're open and meet with the interns. But it's just not for employees, it's for anybody. The services are free right now. We're not charging. It's, again, we're all in it together. We all want to get through this as healthy as we can.